Hello and welcome. It's Monday. It's Motivational Monday by Jim and Lucy. And today it's Motivational Monday by Jim and Lucy. And our special guest from, well, you wouldn't believe it, from Doha, Qatar, is Carina Lawson. Hello, Carina.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much for having me here, Jim and Lucy. Such a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and we're so honored. We had a chance to talk to you and just really fell in love with your splendid attitude.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And the topic for today is making space for you in a schedule as a working parent. And I know it's a tough topic because many of our listeners trying to find a ways today on Monday on how to make this week different. And Carina has answers. So Carina, please tell us, what is the biggest struggle you found that people that reaching out to you for help finding when managing the schedule?
It's such a common topic that people don't often talk about, and people reach out and say that, how can I make these 5 million things that I've got going on work and have time to eat, sleep, and rest and exercise, do the 10,000 steps and take care of my family, cook 5-course meals, and the truth of the matter is that we're making space for everything else and everybody else's to-dos, that we don't make empowered decisions with our time to put ourselves on the agenda. It's so common, and I speak for myself, like 6 years ago, I work a very demanding job from 9 to 5, and I had 2 lovely twins in tow, and all their appointments were done. The I's were dotted, the T's were crossed, and yet my medical appointments were being rescheduled and postponed. Oh, I'll do that later. And it wasn't until I learned that things just didn't feel right. And it's not okay. Like, sometimes when you feel such a weight on your shoulders and your body is just not, you know how you should be feeling, and yet we kind of put that aside. And it's so important to make that space for yourself in your schedule, that space to say, you know what, like, this is where I draw the line in the sand. Something doesn't feel okay, or doesn't sit well with me anymore. And it's really taking that stance to say, I'm going to put myself on the agenda. Because at the end of the day, it's so important for you to enjoy your life and contribute to this life with your presence and your with the best of you, and not what's in the rest of you, So really taking stock of what is going on your agenda and your planner and your calendar. Is that really important? How can you treat yourself as a priority that needs to be scheduled in first, and ensure that you also have some space and to recharge it's okay to have blank spaces in your planners. For all my type A people listening, it's completely okay to have that downtime, because then you bring such a better energy into your next appointment, into the next room that you walk into. And life is such a gift. You are such a gift to the world, that you owe it not only to yourself, but to others out there as well, to make that space for you.
That is excellent.
Absolutely. Well, Carina, I think the important question is, how do we find that switch in our brains to turn off what we've been told from the childhood, that we need to sacrifice, we need to be helpful, understanding, tolerant, this and that. And then we ended up at the point where, okay, doesn't feel right. Where is that switch?
Yeah. The switch sometimes is one that you decide to flip. And sometimes I'm afraid to say that in my case, it was one that nature decided to flip. I suffer from not one, but 2 chronic illnesses, and I didn't know what was coming. And what came at me floored me for months. And that could have been avoided, because 95% of it was my lifestyle of running, skipping meals, and okay, I'll just hit the gym later, and by gym, by the way, like I mean a walk, okay? Because like to this day, I don't necessarily do the weights and the things, but I move my body in a way that feels right and fun and comfortable for me. And between making the choice and having that being made for you, whether it's by medical intervention or divine intervention, you really want to it be the former. Because the latter, like sometimes will cost you even so much more time for recovery and so much more in terms of medical bills. You don't want to do that. And you can choose you today, even if it's just 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And this is something that I talk about all the time. And I trust me as somebody who's a business analyst who wears a suit by day. And if you told me that I would be journaling and I would look at you and be like, what? I mean, really? I do not have time for that. Okay, I do not have time. But it's a practice that I developed before I even even before I would turn my computer on at work. And I do this to this day. Before my computer goes on, I ask my assistant, Siri, she's great. She comes with me everywhere. She's in my pocket. And I just ask her to play a song. And within those 3 minutes, that gets my endorphins up because I listen to a lovely song that I have on my playlist, something upbeat. 3 minutes, I just write down how I'm feeling today, or I use a journal prompt. That's it. And when the song is over, oh, that's when that's when I get to work. But before that, and that's what works for me. And the beauty of this is finding what works for you, what brings you joy, and what's comfortable. I didn't start with journaling. I started with a prayer every morning, before I even opened my eyes. I started with, hearing what other people talked about in terms of their morning routines. And I said, I've got 2 little kids. I've got to get out of the house. But I realized that I was not allowing myself, Lucy, to even allow myself to flip that switch because I was already in my head thinking, oh, this is not going to work. Until I said, let me try. Instead of running to pick up my kids from school, because I didn't want to be late, I started walking, because I'm like, if I'm going to be late anyway, I might as well walk and not break a heel, So I started walking. And then I started to use my 5 senses to notice what was around me, little things. And I was like, oh, you know what? In this little walk, and I noticed the trees, I noticed the lovely sounds of the birds chirping, just that little something. And then one day it became, how can I incorporate movement? And it just became, okay, can I just walk for 5 minutes while I listen to a podcast? And so I became an avid podcast listener because that's when I got to listen to a podcast when I was during my walk, and it became a ritual. It's just finding what feels good, what's to you, so that you can start. Because like I had mentioned earlier, the flip will get switched for you, whether you decide to do it or it just happens that you've overlooked some things.
So nature finds a way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it can be difficult. Carina, I have another question. How do you think the process of finding those moments and incorporating your life and schedule is different for men, working parent versus female?
Oh, that's a great question. People are different. Whether, like, if you compare my life as a woman to another woman, also with 2 little kids, we're going to be different. So it's whatever works for you. And I realize that responsibilities may not necessarily be shared in the household, but looking inward as an individual, right? Like I know that my husband likes to run, and great, he can run, but like that's great. And I would always be thinking, and he does that in the morning before he picks up the kids from school. And it took a conversation about how can we share the responsibility of dropping the kids off at school in the morning? And instead of it being a conversation about like, oh, but you do this and I do that, la, 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 like, how can we both have that time, in the morning that we do the things that we enjoy? And some weeks it works, some weeks it doesn't, but it does take that conversation. Men and women tend to plan differently just because of the ways that we're wired. But again, I always go back to how can you make your life a little easier. I was talking to a friend recently and I said, oh, I really want to do this thing, but I'm not very tech savvy. And then her and I, we always motivate each other. And she goes, okay, Carina, let's get a piece of paper out and write down 10 reasons why that's going to be easy. And again, because we're in the moment, we're in the problem, it's very, very challenging to see the tree from the forest. Is that the expression? English is my second language, everybody. So like sometimes I don't get my expressions right. But how can we make this easy? In the morning, I used to get very stuck on breakfast. Oh, I never have breakfast. My morning routine doesn't look like this person's morning routine where they go into an infrared sauna and wake up at 5 a.m. And that's okay, because that's their morning routine. That's what works for them. I've been trying to sneak in extra 5 minutes of sleep since I was 8 years old. And I hacked the system by sleeping in my uniform. My mom could not figure out why I would always wake up wrinkly. But that's just how I'm wired. My dad is a professional athlete. My sister, I have early risers all around me. And the minute you accept that that's how you're wired, the minute that you go like, okay, I can work with this, the minute that you become aware that's how you are and how you're wired, then the aligned action becomes so much easier. So back to my breakfast example, I was stuck on this idea like, oh, I don't have a 5-course meal for breakfast. And then I learned about overnight oats. I learned about I can just grab a piece of fruit. I learned about a phased approach to my morning routine. Well, I can grab breakfast when I get to work. I can just get it, or pack a lunch. Like I have to pack the kids' lunches anyway. So I might as well pack myself like a little breakfast and have it at work. Again, it's just whatever works for you. And if you, men and women, they really do have different planning styles. But even within those constructs, people in general have planning styles. We have a quiz at ponderlily.com that you can take, and it helps you identify your productivity archetype. And, sometimes I've taken that quiz myself, even though I've designed it, and it changed. And that's exactly what I was looking for, because our seasons of life are so different, even between men and women, but the seasons of our lives are so different. The way that I feel more productive now is so different when I was trying to keep my newborn twins like alive and in sync, and making sure that I was eating and sleeping properly and things like that. So yeah, it varies, and I think it's beautiful.
I love that advice. Lucy and I, we don't have any kids at home now except for Sophie, our little puppy. But I make the bed in the mornings. I change the sheets. I do the laundry. I do all the laundry, and we share the cooking, and we have a housekeeper. But by and large, we have our businesses, but I don't know. It works pretty well. At least it works well because I'm saying it. Maybe okay. I haven't heard. When she gets ready to give her point of view, I say, shh, shh, shh,
No, it works fine for us. And it takes, as you mentioned, our dear listeners, it takes talking to each other to make those routines work for both of you, because sometimes I know there's one parent in the house. Sometimes there are two parents in the house. Sometimes there are 4 parents in 2 houses for those kids. So you guys can make arrangement whatever you have and make it work for you. Even a single parent, I know it's challenging. Been there, done that, but it's doable.
It is doable. Like you said
Absolutely.
earlier, as long as you have communication, you're talking openly and honestly.
Yeah, and I think it's so important too to have open conversations with the people that can support you, or if you have a mentor, or if you're looking for a coach, to have that conversation, because oftentimes we can get so stuck into that pattern of thinking, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't good enough. And it's such a gift to be able to lift yourself up from that. And again, be aware, make yourself aware that something may not be working, or may be different, or maybe what suits you at the moment. And then once you're aware of it, you can accept it. You can accept that you need help, or you can accept that maybe things need to be a little tweaked. Maybe accept that this is how it is going to work for you. You are going to sleep in a uniform, and take aligned action towards what it is that you want to achieve and what results you want to have.
Well, I really want to be fit like an athlete, but I have found, this could help your husband, I have found that if I watch a running video to eat a donut, I get the same benefits. Don't do it.
She does it all the time. Okay?
That's great.
No sweat.
I love it. I'm a walker, and I've learned to accept it. And I love to walk, and that's my exercise.
Walk to the donut shop, okay?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry. Lucy doesn't like chubby hubby.
he lives in his world. Okay?
Okay.
So Carina, before we go, tell us more about your planners. Visited your website. So our dear listeners, the website is ponderlily.com. You can find link in the description to this episode. Tell us more. How is it helpful, and how it will help our listeners?
Sure. So the reason why I decided to create the Ponder Lily Planner was because what I found, I did my master's degree in workplace wellness, and making sure that people who work were keeping themselves, who could lead and live well, essentially. And what I have found from my research was that people were not taking care of themselves. And even when I would observe my friends and coworkers open their planners and write down what they had to do, that's all it was. It was they had to do. It didn't help them with who they wanted to be in the future. So the Ponder Lily Planner has sections that are aimed at keeping your vision board, so that you have something to look forward to, and you can keep your goal fresh and tucked away in a very professional manner, but that you get to look at every day. It has very few prompted questions, what do you want to explore this year? What do you want to learn? How do you want to serve your community? Again, it's beyond the doing. It's beyond the everyday to-dos. The next section that we have is just what is your monthly roadmap? What it is that you want to achieve within the month that does focus on your health, your wellness, your special project, finances. At the end of the month, it gives you a check-in, how are you doing? But I think my favorite spread on the Ponder Lily Planner is the weekly spread. And the reason why I love it is because it starts with an intention. And intentions are like guided actions. And when you write things down, so a typical intention that I write down a lot is, I am becoming a woman who's healthy. I am becoming a woman who exercises effortlessly, because it's very hard sometimes for people to think, I am strong, I am brave, when you're going through something that's very real, very valid, and having a very human experience, and all of a sudden go from 0 to 100, So I thought that helping people start their day well, start their week well, and then end their day well too, with gratitude. So there's space for gratitude, and there is space a box to help you recharge. Because oftentimes we don't think about how we're going to recharge during the week, what we're going to look forward to that is not dependent on a time bound, nobody goes like, have fun 8 o'clock on a Tuesday,
Yes.
but as long as you have it there, it keeps the pressure off and yet keeps you looking forward to something. And then, dear listeners, I have to tell you, the to-do section of the Ponder Lily Planner is small. And it's small because it's, if I give you an A4 piece of paper or a whole blank notebook, you're going to fill it in with all the stuff. And then when you don't achieve all the stuff because there are only 24 hours in a day, then you feel defeated and you feel upset. So I want to make sure that the things in your to-do list, they matter and they are guiding you towards the bigger goal and they deserve a place in there. So it's small for a reason, but it's just enough space, don't worry. And in the back of the Ponder Lily Planner, there is a mini notebook, so you don't have, that was kind of like a selfish reason that I put that in there. My sweet daughter Nina loves to draw and all the things that I have. I mean, right now, I own a planner company and I don't have one to show you because they probably took it somewhere upstairs. And it also has detached pages because, if you do have little people who'd like to draw, or if you are in a corporate space like I am, and you have to give a friend, here's some instructions or a note or a diagram, you can easily tear out the pages. And if you like to journal, then you don't have to carry two things at once. And I made it so that it's professional, polished, and it also carries all the personal things that make you you. So that's it.
I love what you're doing. Your website is beautiful, it's functional.
Thank you.
And you hit on two things one thing that really stood out to me. Kevin Cashman wrote a book years ago called Leadership is from the Inside Out. And he says it's better to be than to do, because real change occurs from the inside out. And you mentioned how you deliberately made it smaller for the doing things. And, I see how you're emphasizing the being, and I applaud you for that. That's really remarkable.
Thank you.
I encourage people to go to your website. It's Ponder Lily. It's PONDERLILY. I highly encourage them to do that and work with you and get your planner.
Thank you. That's so kind. I appreciate it. And, with it, you also get access to a free printable library. We also have support. So if you do need to have a conversation with me, or if you want just some support on a productivity consult, I'll be more than happy to hop on a call with you. So.
Well, that is wonderful. And, you're a great person to chat with. If they wake up in the middle of the night and want to just talk, we'll give them your home phone number. Okay, great.
So this is how you become a 5 a.m. person, okay?
Okay. But no, seriously, this lady is the real deal. I highly encourage you to work with her and contact her. I mean it, okay? And now, Cutter, is that Qatar or Cutter?
Qatar.
He's American.
I'm American, okay? We don't, anything outside Mississippi, we don't worry about, okay? Okay.
Well, Carina, thank you very much for joining us and sharing this insight. And I'm pretty sure our listeners will start applying your advice and talking and making space for themselves in their lives this week. Dear listeners, please don't skip. This is the week to start. This is the day to start. This is an hour to start. There is no more waiting. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
This is Motivational Monday by Jim and Lucy.
Follow our podcast.
And check out our website, jimandlucywoods.com.